Vanessa Redgrave, welcome.
Ah!
Well done, all of you, and well done, Jolie, who's been literally labouring at this end. Here we
Vanessa,
are.
hello, good evening. It's Frank here.
Yes.
Hello, Frank.
Nice to see you again. Seems like yesterday that we did this on stage, but we're in a different world now.
Haven't you just seen the film?
Well, I saw it last time, of course, with you. So
No,
when
haven't seen it today.
no, has it changed?
So you remember it?
Well, I'd like to think I did. Yes, I hope so. But I think some of our viewers will have, some of the people watching this will have seen it for the first time.
Great.
So
Well, it was shown all over Italy yesterday on
I
Sky
bet.
Arts.
Oh, good, right. Gosh, nationally.
Yes.
Yes, because part of yesterday was obviously International, Global Refugee Day. So that was the occasion, and they decided to put it on Sky Arts and Now TV in Italy. So that was yesterday.
So what I suggest here, if it's okay with you both, before we talk about Sea of Sorrow and you give us an update, many people watching this, of course, think of you as for your acting rather than your activism, as it were, which I know is incredibly important to you, as it is to the world. But if we could just...
I don't think, dear Frank, that UNICEF can be categorized as activism.
All right. I mean, it's a departure from acting, let's just say that. I mean, you are somebody who has won just about every award going in the bulk of your professional career, Golden Globe, Emmy, Oscar, you name it. I do think people would like to know what propelled you into taking up this particular cause for the people who have had such a terrible time, who are on the shores of the Channel and getting across Europe.
Well, very simply, cutting my answer to the nitty-gritty if possible, you probably don't know because we haven't had much Italian news published here in the UK recently. But a 5-month-old baby was found drowned. And of course, this has created a wave of outrage and sorrow in Italy. And that, of course, ties in, how many years ago was it? It was 16. I think it was 16, if not 15, 16, that the little Kurdish baby, 2.5 years old, Aylan Kurdi, called Kurdi because he's Kurdish, was drowned and found in a rather expensive resort called Bodrum. And the reason why I mentioned the expensive resort was because that's the only reason why photographs were taken of the lifeguard bringing up his little lifeless body up onto the beach. And lots of people had their cameras and were outraged and rang and did everything. And that's how the news got around the world. And of course it got around to people like us who've worked for the refugees for a long, long time. Many refugees. You may remember that in the film we refer to the Hungarian refugees in 1956, and also to many others. So that's what, it's children, it's mothers, it's families trying to escape from war and the poverty caused by war, caused by dictatorship, caused by conflicts, and civilians trying to escape and find a better life.
So what was it specifically, Vanessa, that inspired you to make Sea of Sorrow? Was it the Syrian war?
Well, specifically Aylan Kurdi, specifically refugees, and a number of them, specifically Alf Dubs, our great friend who's in the film. The Lord Dubs he's called, but Alf Dubs is how he likes to be known, and he was a kinder transport.
Now, you made that film just over 3 years ago.
It was shown in Cannes at the festival special selection in 1917.
No, 2017.
2017.
Sorry, 2017. Jesus, crikey.
So that was just over 3 years ago. What do you think's been achieved since then in terms of ameliorating the plight of refugees that you, as far as you can see?
Well, some have been saved thanks to the arduous efforts and funds raised. And Alf Dubs is one of the reasons of saving. Saving meaning the rights under human rights law of refugees not to be sent back to where they came from, the conflicts and the wars. What has been won, what has not been won, is basically the fact that the EU governments, all of them, tried to send the refugees back, thereby breaking international human rights law.
Well, I'm not sure that applies to Germany, surely, because they took in 1.5 million in 2015.
Yes, I know the Germans very well. We've been there with our film. We've met many, many of the people who work with the refugees there.
But Germany, surely, has perhaps bucked the trend. If you compare someone like Hungary, which has made it very clear that they don't welcome refugees, whereas Germany has done. There must surely be a distinction between different countries.
Sorry, have you seen the footage of the huge marches in Germany for the refugees, for Black Lives Matter? Because most of the refugees, their skin is not lily white. Have you noticed? Of course you have, Frank.
Well, it's incredibly polarized. Of course, you've got, on one extreme, you've got people like Alternative for Deutschland, AfD.
Yes, but they're going down in the polls. They're going down, which is, thank God, a moment perhaps only, but that's where they are. They're going down. Because people respect Merkel, Chancellor Merkel. And I respect her immensely, and I know her.
So what still has to be done, Vanessa? Because I remember when you and I were on stage at the Barnes Film Festival last time, you very graphically produced, I think it was a rubber bullet, a baton round, that was being used by the French police in Calais, which was pretty shocking.
It was tear gas.
Tear gas, that was it, yes. Yeah. So what still has to be done? What would you like to see being done? What's your message?
Well, we don't have a message. First and foremost, I'll say what I'd like to be done, but then we say that in the film, basically. We'd like all the support and the money to be spent so that the refugees can have their rights, which first and foremost need to be interviewed fast and rapidly to get their stories and to know who they were trying to reach. Because most of them have relatives in Europe. Many of them have relatives in England. Some arrived not so long ago, about 2.5 weeks ago, on a specially chartered plane. But you remember that Theresa May, this is after you and I, as far as I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, you remember that Theresa May wanted a hostile environment. Well, that reminds me of the 1930s. Not in every way, but that was a pretty awful hostile environment, wasn't it? So a little baby who drowns has encountered the hostile environment of having to be brought onto a boat which was overloaded, etc., etc. And the European Union is responsible for those deaths. So all I can say is, first and foremost, is for money to be spent. And you should ask Carlo. He's my co. I know you don't have to, but he's my co. The film couldn't have been made without Carlo. It's got specific material because of what I lived. But what I would like is the money to be spent by Europe. The money to be spent to give the refugees their rights, to get them out of the hellholes which they've been consigned to in Libya, some in Turkey. Not all in hellholes in Turkey, but some definitely in hellholes in Turkey. Some in the various parts of Syria, etc. Some in Iraq, all over.
So I remember
Black Lives Matter. I'd like that to be taken on board by these governments.
I remember, Vanessa, the last time we spoke, and do you remember I asked you if you saw any distinction between refugees from war, mostly Syrians and Afghans who are coming from war-ravaged countries, any distinction between them on the one hand and economic migrants coming from countries that are perhaps impoverished but are not actually at war? And I remember at the time you said that you saw no distinction. Is that still your viewpoint?
It's a false distinction. Why do I say that so categorically? Because the majority of refugees have never had the interviews they're entitled to. So nobody knows what they've been through. We know some of what they've been through because we work with refugees and because of the ones we made the film with, some of whom are still in Italy, thanks to the good-hearted people who don't make distinctions between those who've just survived getting across the Sahara the desert, or just survived being overturned in a gommone, as the Italians call them.
A rubber dinghy, yeah.
The rubber dinghy, yes.
Yeah.
Right, thank you. But I noticed you refer to them all as refugees, as opposed to migrants. So,
migrants, my God, Frank, come on. You know what migrants are. You know who migrants are. They officially do the work of different seasons, fruits and vegetables, and it's basically a very arduous job. But it's a particular category. It's migrants. It's not refugees. You know that, dear.
Yeah, there's a. If I just may just step in, there's a tendency to lump them sort of together, when it's, as Vanessa just said, it's very, very categorically different. I mean, there are these seasonal migrants who come in to work in fields to pick fruits and vegetables. I mean, Italy couldn't survive without them. I mean, we're reading now in Italy that they're paying for the transport of migrants to come back to Italy after COVID to pick all the seasonal fruit and vegetables, which no one else is doing. So, you know, they're becoming a lifeline to the economy.
And British farmers are urging and obtaining EU workers to come to do the work here, seasonal work, for whether it's strawberries or whatever. It has to be done. Hops for beer. I mean, come on, let's.
Do you think, Vanessa, that Brexit is going to make it even harder for those trying to get into this country, the people who you've been campaigning for?
Well, I shouldn't make a quip here at this point. I think Brexit makes it harder for anyone to survive in our country. The majority of people who've been done out for 10 years, as you know, Frank, you know as well as I do, the poverty that's been inflicted on people in this country of whatever nationality, of whatever religion, whatever category at all, whatever colour of the skin, the poverty that has been inflicted on people in Britain.
Well, I don't want to get straight too far into politics. By the way,
I'm
everybody,
not talking politics, I'm talking facts.
yeah. Can I just remind everybody, do send in your questions. There is a Q&A function on your Zoom, either at the top of the screen or at the bottom. So do type in your questions, which I will put to Vanessa directly. So don't hold back, and we'll Vanessa, I'm sure, will be happy to answer those, because you don't just want to hear from me, although we've got about another 5 to 10 minutes, I think. Vanessa, I can't let you get away without talking a bit about yourself, because you're being very modest here, because you've been talking about the things that matter so much to you. But I think a lot of people watching will want to know, if you don't mind my digressing for a moment, how have you survived lockdown and coronavirus?
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm here to talk with you, Frank, and there won't be many questions able to get in 10 minutes, but still, let's get as many as we can. This is why we're meeting.
Well, I know, but I think you're being a little modest here. You are...
Nothing to do with modesty. It's to do with the absolute need. We've shown a film, and I'm so grateful that the Barnes Film Festival has, summoned a load of efforts together. In the lockdown period, they've organised so the festival is surviving in a different form, and you've played your part in helping that happen. You're playing your part now. I'm doing my little bit, so's Carlo. We're doing everything we can. Carlo and I have given interviews to the Italian press because it was shown all over Italy yesterday evening on Sky Arts TV. I mean, we all do what we can, and we better do what we can, because one day, it will come about that we need help too.
I'm sure. Now, somebody has put the question, what are you going to do next creatively? Will it be a follow-up to Sea of Sorrow?
I don't know. I'll certainly be asking Alf Dubs as to what we can do. At the moment, Italy won't let people from the UK come in because we're renowned for the dreadful state of, the contaminations of the COVID. Greece is a bit dubious about us coming too. I don't know. I'm pretty infirm physically. Carlo isn't. I think there's more film we could do in Italy. And I've got a feeling, Carlo and I haven't been able to discuss this because we're making another film. As we speak, doing what everybody's doing, trying to make our films, whether they're documentaries. We made one, which we're still showing. We showed it on a Zoom webinar. Was it 3 weeks ago, Carla?
Yeah, about
St. John.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Eyes of St. John. I was supposed to go out to the Palestine-occupied territories with Carlo and his son Raf and a terrific cameraman. And anyway, they went. I last went to Lebanon to the refugee camps there in 2018. But Carlo made this film, and it's a brilliant film. It's very much shorter than The Eyes of St. John is very much shorter than Sea Sorrow. I think we would both very much like, if we could find the funding for it, to do a follow-up, because one of the things that happened while I was last 2018 in Lebanon in the camps was when Trump cancelled the American funding for UNRWA.
That's the United Nations Refugee and Works Agency.
Yes, indeed. Thanks for filling in. Bless you.
there's a very practical question that someone is asking, Vanessa. Someone is asking, if they wanted to take in a child today, how should they go about it?
Well, I don't know the very best way, but there's two ways. And one would be to contact well, three ways actually. Contact UNHCR, the United Nations High Commission for Refugees. One would be to contact UNICEF, but I think they'll find better luck if they contact UNHCR, because more appropriate. UNHCR deal with the family.
The UN Commission for Refugees.
Yeah, that's right. The other would be to contact Safe Passage, which has been responsible for saving the rights of refugees, especially refugee children, to get the permits necessary, etc., etc. It takes years of struggle to get them to be able to join their families in Britain, for instance, or in Germany, as the case might be, but especially in Britain. International Safe Passage is the name. And the other would be to write to Alf Dubs.
That's Lord Dubs at the House of Lords, presumably.
Yes.
So I hope that answers your question. Thank you for that. Another question is, they'd like to know, Carlo, what was your role in the film, which was pretty instrumental. Perhaps you could talk a little bit about your role in the film.
Well, my role in the film was fundamentally to ensure that Vanessa's vision could be realized as fully as possible. And some of the filming was in tricky circumstances, and other things were a little bit easier. But that's essentially what I did was I used my filmmaking knowledge to help her, as I said, realize her vision, and that's really essentially what it was. I mean, we were a creative team, and so there were a lot of discussions as to what direction the film should take, because it wasn't all scripted. I mean, there really was just a sort of bit of a very thin thread of an idea, and which was followed. I mean, other than the Shakespeare, which I think Vanessa knew she always wanted in the film from the very beginning. The other elements just sort of seemed to, it was almost like a domino effect, literally.
Yes.
We'd filmed something and then realized that this would lead to something else that needed to be filmed, etc., etc. And then we had also the wonderfully, it was rather serendipitous, was that this opportunity to film these young child refugees who we see at the beginning of the film in Italy. I mean, that was a great opportunity that was given to us, and we took it because, of course, their stories are crucial at the beginning of the film to sort of set the tone of the experiences that these young refugees have, in particular, whether they come from Afghanistan or Syria or from Africa, parts of Africa.
You mentioned the challenges there, Carlo. What was the biggest challenge making the film?
Well, I think the biggest challenge was, again, the traveling to various places, and also the having to take breaks, literally, to not be able to do it all continuously. The stopping and starting, just that whole the nature of that was quite a challenge. And to keep focused, but to keep the material focused in the edit, and so that it just didn't sort of completely meander and go off on some tangent that Vanessa didn't want it to.
You found a terrific editor, Folashade.
Yeah, Folashade Oyele was our wonderful editor, and she was very patient with us, and
Yeah.
and good humoured, so that helped. So it was a good. I mean, it was a good experience. It wasn't easy, but it was a good experience overall.
And Vanessa, how involved were you in the making of the film? Obviously, it was your drive, your idea, your own input, but how involved at a practical level were you in this?
In every way. How do I explain what one does as a director, Carla?
Well, you were orchestrating fundamentally. When
Right.
you were orchestrating, and and I was just there helping, as best I could.
Not just there.
And there were situations where, and I think there were some situations where I just for practical reasons, I had to sort of take over a little bit, but obviously with Vanessa's notes or questions, etc. For example, in Italy, those are things I had to do. But other than that, I mean, it really, she was there, always there. Even if she wasn't there, she was there.
Yeah.
Yes, and you don't see in the film a lot of journeys that Carlo made on his own and I made on my own, and yet we were working together for the film, because I went to Sicily, to Palermo, to meet with Leoluca Orlando. We followed through an awful lot of things that actually have all gone into the making of this film, let alone showing it afterwards.
But I think there's that.
Went all
I mean,
over the world with it, didn't
the
we?
film is, the film took on a sort of life of its own, in the sense that it became more than a film because of all the opportunities it gave us to travel and meet with people, and actually campaign to help refugees wherever that may be. So in a sense, that the film just became this extraordinary tool for that. And as Vanessa just said, sort of behind the scenes, people don't know about this. We've in our own little way have hopefully made a bit of a difference, in the various places we went to.
Mm.
So unfortunately, we're out of time now. I've got one last question, Vanessa, and Carlo, feel free to chip in if you like. Over your incredible career, which includes this film, what would you say has been the thing you're most proud of? And I'm going right back to 1959 here. So from 1959 to this present moment, what do you want to be most remembered for? I know it's a difficult question. You probably don't like it, but there you go.
No, I don't like it. You're quite right. So I would normally say next, but I can't say next. I can't see my life like that, dear. Everything I'm proud of is what other people have done. And I've been a little bit part of it, sometimes a little bit helped. I'm very proud of the work that Carlo does as a director and as a producer as well. I mean, there's a lot of work goes in, and then you have to raise the money, as well. It's no small thing. And then you go off, like the last time I went to Lebanon, whom I'm proud of there. I'm proud of the refugees themselves. My God.
Carlo, do you want to add something?
Sorry, I thought it sounded a bit more like it was focused on Vanessa, but could you just repeat what you said before?
What are you proud of most in your
proud
life?
of
Professional life? Or my... Yes, yours.
Well, I'm proud of, just grateful for the opportunity to be involved in these types of projects. I mean, really, these are the sort of projects that inspire one to go forward, to give you hope in humanity, and hope that in your own tiny little way you can make a difference. So really, that's all you can really say at this point. Whatever the projects are. So.
With that film you did, Eyes of St. John, which I'm in 2 seconds. I'm very proud to be in it for 2 seconds. But just making sure that a kid or an old person won't have diabetes for the rest of their life, will be able to actually see instead of be blind for the rest of their life. One person.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it is. It's all about saving one life, even one life at a time, and every life, every life whoever can help save, is as the ancient Hebrews saying in the Old Testament, saving one life, you're saving the world entire. So I guess that's that's very much the crux of it, isn't it?
Well, Carlo and Vanessa, thank you so much for taking part in this
Thank you
and
very much.
for sharing your film and your insights and your thoughts. And thank you also
Frank.
to the audience for, well, for your patience, but also
Thank
for
you,
joining
audience, for your
Yes,
patience.
well
Yes.
done, very patient,
Graham.
definitely.
Sorry about the technical.
Thank you, Sam
difficulties.
Cullis, and all at the film festival.
Thank you for the film to the
Doing
film
all your
festival.
work.
Yes.
Well done. Thank you again, Frank.
Thanks,
You're
Frank.
very
Thank you
welcome.
very much.
Take care.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.